the expression for expression for energy and wave function for a particle confined in a one-dimensional box. Okay, see for particle in 1D box, for a particle confined in 1D box, we derived the expression for energy. I told you this is actually translational kinetic energy because we assumed potential energy as 0. So this is translational kinetic energy, which is given by the formula n square h square over 8ml square. Okay, this is the energy expression, and the expression for wave function is psi n of x. This is actually time independent wave function. Psi n of x can be given as square root of 2 by L into sine n pi by L into x. Okay, then we discussed about the energy, quantized energy values, and I told you that the energy gap between adjacent level increases, right, as we go to the higher levels. Okay, as n increases, the gap between adjacent level increases. Then this system has a 0 point energy. Okay, 0 point energy means at temperature 0 Kelvin, the energy possessed by the molecule, if it is not 0, we call that energy as 0 point energy. So particle in 1D box, particle confined in a 1D box, okay, has 0 point energy. Okay, then also I told you that how to calculate, right, the gap between adjacent level, right, adjacent energy level, and how it is related to wave, the box length, right. So many things we discussed. Then we also discussed in the last class that how the wave function will appear for different quantum states. Okay, for example, I'll draw roughly here. I'll draw here. See, for n is equal to 1 state, the wave function will appear like this. Okay, this is the nature of the wave function for n equal to 1 state. If you go to n equal to 2 state, right, in n equal to 1 state, the wave function always has positive value. But if you go to n equal to 2 state, so here x is equal to 0, here x is equal to L, so box length is L. Okay, if you take n is equal to 2, then the wave function becomes 0 at the middle of the box, and then it goes to negative value and becomes 0 at the terminal. Okay, so at n equal to 1, n equal to 2, called first excited state. In first excited state, from 0 to L, the wave function has positive value, then 0 to L by 2. Then from L by 2 to L, the wave function has negative value. Okay, so when the sign of the wave function changes, okay, in between the box anywhere, we call that point as a node. So here we have node, but in ground state there is no node, right? Similarly, if you go to n equal to 2 state, okay, I'm sorry, n equal to 3 state, n equal to 3 state is actually called as the second excited state. Okay, those things we discussed in the last class, right? N equal to 2 state is called the second excited, n equal 3, I'm sorry, n equal 3 is second excited state. In second excited state, the wave function becomes 0 at L by 4 and at 3L by 2, 3L by 4. So the wave function will have a form like this. Okay, it has positive values here and here and negative value here. Okay, and if you compare this length and this length, okay, the wave function in the negative direction has higher magnitude actually. Okay, so here wave function changes from plus to minus, therefore there is a node here, and here the wave function changes from minus to plus again, so this is another node. So here we have 2 nodes, whereas here we have 1 node, here no node. So as we go to the higher level, okay, depending upon the value of n, right, you may be having 1 node, 2 node, 3 node, etc. Suppose if for a given n value, how many nodes are possible? Okay, that I told you in the last class, that is number of nodes is equal to n minus 1. This is a general formula. Okay, for ground state n is equal to 1, so 1 minus 1, it gives you no node. For first excited state n equal to 2, if I put 2 here, 2 minus 1, I'll get 1 node. Okay, so using this formula you can find out number of nodes. And it is also very clear from this is that as we go to the higher level, okay, from ground state to first excited state, first excited to second excited state, if you go to the higher excited states, what will happen? Number of nodes increases. Okay, so I can say in this manner that as number of nodes increases, energy also increases. Okay, so here energy of the states, okay, it is directly proportional to number of nodes. As number of nodes increases, energy also increases. Okay, there is no mathematical relation for this, but remember this is a very important formula here. Okay, right. So these things we discussed in the last class. Now what I'm going to do here, see, this is the psi1 wave function, that is wave function of the ground state, and this wave function is the psi2 wave function in the first excited state, and this is wave function in the second excited state. Okay, like that goes. In the first excited state wave function, see here, suppose if I keep a plane here, a mirror, imaginary mirror plane, I'll take my scale and listen, I'll keep it here exactly at the middle. Listen, in the ground state, see, in the left hand side and right hand side, okay, I'm dividing exactly at L by 2, I'm okay, exactly at the middle of the box, I'm keeping a plane here, mirror plane. Right now you see the left the either side of the plane, right, in either side of the plane, listen, if you do reflection, yes, this part will reflect here and this part will reflect here, I'll get equivalent structure, right? There won't be any change. Okay, and see the sign here, positive, here also positive. Okay, therefore this wave function is a symmetric wave function, right? Ground state wave function is a symmetric wave function. Whereas if you go to excited state, first excited state, suppose you take first excited state, now see, if you keep plane, here I have crust, whereas here I don't have a crust, I have a trough. That means these two wave functions, they do not have mirror plane symmetry. Okay, so I can say simply that this wave function is not symmetric wave function, it is supposed to be an asymmetric wave function, right? So or antisymmetric wave function, right? So I can say simply from this, qualitatively you can say this in this manner, that is psi 1 of x, odd number, right? Psi 3 of x, psi 5 of x, etc., etc., odd number, right? These wave functions are symmetric wave functions, are symmetric functions, whereas wave functions like psi 2 of x, psi 2, this wave function, similarly psi 4 of x, psi 6 of x, right, even number wave functions, these wave functions are anti-symmetric wave function, anti-symmetric. Okay, so remember which is a symmetric wave function, which is actually anti-symmetric wave function, right? Using this mirror plane symmetry, okay, whether the wave function possesses mirror plane or not, we can easily identify whether the wave function is symmetric or not. This is one way, but actually what is the mathematical way? The mathematical way is this, that is whether a function is symmetric or not, right? How to identify? Suppose I have a function psi of x. Okay, what you have to do? You replace this x by minus x, right? If psi of x and psi of minus x, if these two are equal, okay, we call that function as symmetric function. Then psi of x, therefore psi of x is a symmetric function. Simple. Suppose I have a function, I'll replace this x by minus x. Suppose if these two are not, if this is equal to minus of this, suppose, right? A psi of x equal to minus of this function, then we call that function as anti-symmetric function. Anti-symmetric function. Okay, if the two functions, they do not have any relationship like this, we call that function as asymmetric function. So now try to understand this, what is meant by symmetric function, what is meant by antisymmetric function, and what is meant by asymmetric functions. Okay, so we have these functions right now. Then so this is very important one, keep this in mind. Then I have told you that the wave functions, these wave functions, that is psi1, psi2, right, psi1 of x, psi2 of x, psi3 of x, right, etc., etc. These wave functions, they are eigenfunctions. Okay, they are eigenfunctions of Hamiltonian operator. Okay, because we obtain these functions by solving Schrodinger equation. Therefore, these wave functions must be eigenfunctions of Hamiltonian operator. But now the question arises: are these functions are eigenfunctions of position operator? Then are these functions are eigenfunctions of momentum operator or not? Okay, yeah. Listen. Now, first I'll take a position operator. I will apply this position operator to the function. Say I'll take a general function psi n of x. Okay, if you apply position operator on a function, okay, you will never get the same function again. Okay, actually applying x operator on function is nothing but multiply with x. Okay, so if I multiply this with x into sine of x, right, now x is also a variable, therefore this function now get modified, right. Therefore, if I apply x operator to a function, I am getting a new function. This is actually a new function. It is not psi n of x, right. So again, right, if you multiply these two, you will get a new function, so that the function get modified. Therefore, what we can say psi n of x is not an eigenfunction, of position operator. Okay, these functions, right, psi1, psi2, psi3, even psi n of x in general, right, in general psi n of x, all these are eigenfunctions of Hamiltonian operator, no doubt in that. But when you apply position operator to the function, right, then the functions you'll get the when you apply the operator to the function get modified. You will get a new function. Therefore, we can say that psi n of x is not an eigenfunction of position operator. What does this result implies? It implies that we cannot find the absolute position of a particle, okay, in a 1D box. You cannot say this is the position of the particle at this value of x, this is the position of the particle, right, that we cannot say. So it implies that position of the particle cannot be defined. We cannot define it. It implies that position of the particle cannot be defined. Okay, so this is very, very important. Keep this in mind, right? What I am trying to say is the function is not an eigenfunction of position operator. That's all, right? Now, similarly, if I apply momentum operator, x component of momentum, right? If I apply momentum operator to the function, is this function eigenfunction of momentum operator or not? You know very well, momentum operator, okay, as this formula h by 2 pi I into dou by dou x. This is the formula for momentum operator. See, in momentum operator, we have an imaginary quantity. If your wave function has imaginary quantity, this is actually time independent wave function. If your wave function has imaginary quantity, then the result will sometime, yeah, it depends. You may get eigenfunction, but it is very clear that this function this function does not contain imaginary part, does not contain I. The function does not contain I. Therefore, since this operator has I, if you apply this operator to the function, you will never get the same function again. You will never get. Okay, right? If you want, you can also try and see, right? But you will never get the same function. You will get a modified function, right? And you will never get real value also, because here you have I, right? You will never get real value, right? But so what does this indicate? It indicates that psi n of x is not an eigenfunction. Is not an eigenfunction of momentum operator also. Is not an eigenfunction of momentum operator. So what is the summary here? I'll give a summary. Right? Listen, very, very important. If you take position operator, if you take momentum operator, and if you take Hamiltonian operator, right? First I'll take particle in free motion, free particle in free motion, which we discussed already, right? Free particle, right, in free motion, right? I'm talking about 1D box only, right? Under 1D box. For 1D box, if you take free particle in free motion, is the wave function is eigenfunction or not? Right? For free particle in free motion, right, wave function psi of x is not an eigenfunction of position operator, right? But it is an eigenfunction of momentum operator. It is an eigenfunction of Hamiltonian operator for free particle in free motion. Whereas when the particle is confined motion, right, that is free particle in confined motion. Now the question is whether psi of x is eigenfunction or not. Okay, similarly here, whether psi of x is eigenfunction or not. Right? In confined motion, wave function is not an eigenfunction of position operator, just now we discussed. And the wave function is also not an eigenfunction of momentum operator. Wave function is an eigenfunction of Hamiltonian operator only. Okay, keep this in mind, very, very important result. Right? Difference between free motion and the confined motion. Right? In confined motion, the eigenfunctions of Hamiltonian operator, they are not eigenfunctions of position operator, they are not eigenfunctions of momentum operator. Okay? Listen, what does this implies? Right? Since they are not eigenfunctions, right? The eigenfunctions of Hamiltonian operator are not the eigenfunctions of position operator. They are not eigenfunctions. What does this indicate? It indicates that inside the particle or inside the box, right, it indicates that the Hamiltonian operator and the position operator, momentum operator, similarly the Hamiltonian operator and the position operator, okay, do they commute or not? If you see, do these operators commute or not? If they commute, then they will have common set of eigenfunctions. Right? But the result is this: they do not commute actually. Right? They do not commute. Right? So under confined motion, these operators do not commute. So they have they do not have common set of eigenfunctions. That means eigenfunctions of Hamiltonian operator never be eigenfunctions of position operator, momentum operator. Similarly, eigenfunctions of Hamiltonian operator never be the eigenfunctions of position operator. Right? So this is very, very important. Keep this in mind. Then another important aspect that we have to discuss is that see here the energy expression En equal to n square h square over 8 ml square. This is the energy formula. I told you this is actually translational kinetic energy because we assumed potential energy inside the box as 0. since it is translational kinetic energy, and we also write kinetic energy as E is equal to P square by 2m. Okay, we can write kinetic energy in terms of momentum like this, right? And we also know from de Broglie relation, H lambda is equal to H by P, right? Or we can write P is equal to H by lambda. If I substitute this P here, okay, I'll get E is equal to H square by 2m lambda square. Now see, this energy and this energy are actually one and the same, because both are kinetic energies. Okay, if I equate these two, energies, right, what will I get? N square H square over 8ml square is equal to H square by 2m lambda square. H square get cancelled. Okay, and you can cancel this m and m. 2 2s are 1 2s are 2, 4 2s are 8. Okay, from this, if you rearrange this equation, we can write lambda is equal to, or I'll bring this lambda square this side. So lambda square equal to, right, 4l square by n square. Okay, I just rearranged it, right? 4l square by n square, or I can also write lambda is equal to 2l by n. 2l by n. Lambda cannot be negative, so lambda, if we take square root, we should consider only positive value. Okay, or we can also write this as L is equal to, also write this as L is equal to n by 2 times lambda, or n into lambda by 2. Very important relation. Lambda L is equal to box length L is equal to n into lambda by 2. Okay, and n can take values 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. What does this result indicate? It indicates that depending upon the quantum state, okay, only certain waves are allowed in the box. Okay, for example, if n is equal to 1, the box, the length of the box should exactly matches with L by lambda by 2. That is half wavelength, right? Half wavelength should be exactly fit with the n equal to 1 state. If you take n equal to 2 state, if you go to n equal to 2 state, 2 cancels, so then length of the box will be exactly equal to wavelength of the matter wave, right? So this is an important relation, keep this in mind. What is that? L would be equal to n times lambda by 2. Only these relation are depending upon the value of n, right? Only that wavelength will match with the box length, right? It's a very important condition for the which we obtain from quantization. Okay, yeah. So this is another important point, keep this in mind. Then next important information is about the average values. What is the average value of position and average value of momentum? Okay, see how to calculate the average or expectation value of position, right? Or average value of position. You know very well the formula under postulate 4. I told you that this expectation value can be calculated using this formula, that is bra of the wave function of the nth state, okay, and the position operator into the wave function for the nth state. Okay, we are finding average value for the nth state, average value of position for the nth state. So you should take nth state wave function, couple like this, then psi n, bra of psi n and ket of psi n. If you calculate this value, you will get the position, average value of position. Okay, and for particle in 1D box, okay, you know, if you substitute the value of psi n as, what is psi n? Square root of 2 by L into sine n pi by L into x. This is psi n. and the position operator is just multiplying by x. Okay, if you substitute all these values, right, you will get the final result as, right, the integration and all I am not going to discuss here. Okay, I'll just send you the integration part separately in the group. Okay, you just go through that. Okay, it's actually very simple, right? It's not a complicated one, it's very simple. The average value of x should be equal to L by 2. It is equal to L by 2. It is nothing but the average value of position is exactly the middle of the box for all state. For all states. For all state means irrespective of the value of n, whether n is 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, right, whatever it is, irrespective of the value of n, the average value of, on average, the position of the particle is L by 2. Okay, or average value of position, I'm sorry, average value of the position of the particle, right, in any state, right, is exactly the middle of the box. Listen, this is very important. Wave function is not an eigenfunction of position operator, that you know. Wave function is not an eigenfunction of position operator. You cannot find the exact position of the particle, right, in any state. You cannot say, okay, whether particle is here or you cannot say that. But average, on average, right, what is the position of the particle, that we can say. The average value of position, right, average value of position is L by 2, right. Average value doesn't mean that particle is present at the middle of the box, no, right. It may be present from 0 to L by 2, or it may present from L by 2 to L anywhere. But if you calculate the average values of all the possible positions, right, then average value comes out like this. Okay, so average value of position is L by 2 for all the states. It is irrespective of the value of n is the value, right. Then similarly, we can also calculate what is the average value of square of the x, okay, or x square, right, average value of x square, right. Yes, this we can also calculate this value. This also involve some integration methods to be adopted. Right now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to give you only the final answer. Right? See, what's the integration we need to solve? This we need to solve the integration psi n x square operator into psi n divided by psi n of psi n. This is the operator. This is the integral. These two integrals we need to solve. Okay, if you get the value of this integral and this integral, you'll get the answer for the average value of x square. Okay, for the integration part, I'll send you the notes. Okay, I'll send you the integration steps separately. Okay, but here I'm going to give you only the final answer. The final answer for this is this, that is L square by 3 minus L square by 2n square pi square. Right? This is the average value of x square, right, for particle in 1D box. So here n is in the denominator. Okay, watch this carefully. If n increases, this value will decrease. For a given box length, this value will decrease. If this decreases, okay, since we are subtracting this quantity from here, if this value decrease, okay, the average value of x square will increase. So average value of x square, right, increases as we go to the higher states. Okay, that is n equal to 1 to n equal to, n equal 2 to n equal 3, n equal 3 to n equal 4, like that. If you move towards higher n quantum states, okay, the average value of x square, right, keeps on increases. Right, whereas the average value of position x, that remains same. It is always L by 2, whereas always the average value of x square is increasing. Okay, keep this in mind, very, very important. Then similarly, what is the average value of the momentum operator? On average, what's the value of momentum operator, okay, or momentum of the particle? Right, this also you can calculate using the same formula, psi n. Instead of position operator, we should put momentum operator, px operator into psi n of x. Yeah, this is n of x, okay, divided by bra of psi n of x into ket of psi n of x. This is the formula we need to put. right? If you simplify this, you will get the average value of position. Okay, sorry, average value of the momentum of the particle, right? And the average value of momentum can also be calculated. You know very well, momentum operator formula is h by 2 pi I into dou by dou x. This is the formula for average value of momentum x component. Okay, so if you substitute this formula here, and if you substitute the wave function formula, and if you simplify the integral, okay, if you calculate the integral, you will get some value for the numerator and value for the denominator, and if you divide it, finally you will get this answer. The answer is, on the average value of momentum comes out to be 0. It's a very important result. Why the average value of momentum is 0? Average value 0 means it doesn't mean that the particle is not moving. Okay, momentum 0 means people may think that so the particle is not moving. No, particle keeps on moving, because there is no even 0 point energy is not 0. Even in the ground state, energy is not 0. So the particle keeps on moving, right? But then why the average value of momentum is 0? Because when particle moves, right, in the towards L, when particle moves towards L, it will take positive momentum value. When particle move towards X, it will have negative momentum value. Okay, because momentum is a vector quantity, it depends upon the direction, right? So if it move in the positive L direction, it will take plus p of x. In the negative direction, it may take minus p of x. Therefore, the net momentum average, the average value means we should add these two, then divided by 2. When you add these two, it will become 0, right? So for particle in 1D box, in all the state, whether n equal to 1 or n equal to 2 or n equal to 3, whatever state you take, in all the state, the average value of momentum is 0. Okay, this is very important result. Okay, keep this in mind. Then similarly, what is the average value of square of the momentum operator, right? Yes, how to do that? Let me give the answer here. The square of the average value of momentum, right? The square of the average average value of the square of the momentum. If you calculate this is actually with the psi n of x, wave function psi n of x is an eigenfunction of square of the momentum operator. It is not an eigenfunction of momentum operator, but it is an eigenfunction of square of the momentum operator, because when you take square, the imaginary term will disappear. Okay, therefore if you apply this operator to this function, you will get the eigenfunction. You will get the same function again. Okay, so therefore it is an eigenfunction. I'm sorry, keep this, watch this carefully. If you apply this operator to the function, you will get the same function as a result. It means this function is an eigenfunction for this operator. So if you calculate the average value of this operator, okay, you will get the answer as n square h square over 4 times L square. This is the answer we get. Okay, so we have obtained the value of average value of x, average value of x square, average value of px, average value of px square, right? Now what is the reason for calculating all these quantities? Okay, listen, we can calculate the standard deviation, that is delta x, right? What is delta x? Delta x is nothing but square root of delta x, that is the uncertainty, right? Uncertainty in position, right? Uncertainty in position can be calculated. It is nothing but standard deviation. This can be calculated by using this formula, that is square root of average value of x square, average value of x it should be average value of x square minus average value of x square minus average value of x the whole square. This is the formula for the delta x. Delta x is actually called the standard deviation, and standard deviation can be calculated using this formula, right? And we know very well what is the value of x square, what is the value of x, right? So if I substitute, okay, the value of x square in the previous page we discussed, the value of x square is this, and the value of x is average value of x is L by 2, right? Now if you substitute in this formula, we will get the answer as let me do it, L square by 3 minus L square by 2 n square pi square, okay, minus the average value of x whole square, which is nothing but L by 2 square, right? And if you simplify this, it's a very simple one, you can easily simplify it. If you simplify this, you will get the final answer as this is the final answer we get, that is 1 by square root of we get 1 by 12 minus 1 by 2 n square pi square, okay, into L square should be there, right? L square, here also we have L square, right? 1 by 12 L square by 12 minus L square by 2n square pi square. This is the result we get, okay, under when calculating delta x. Similarly, if you calculate delta px equal to same formula we have to adopt, px square, that is average value of px square minus average value of px the whole square. Anyway, this is 0, so this term you need not worry about, this is 0, so I'll consider only this, okay. So this value, if you take square root, you'll get the answer as, so for this you have to take square root. If you take square root, or I'll write the expression as such once, so n square h square over 4l square. So this is the value of the average value of position, and this is the uncertainty, uncertainty in position, and this is uncertainty in momentum, right? If we multiply these two, what we get? Average value of position and or uncertainty in position and uncertainty in momentum. If I multiply these two, okay, both are in square root, so you can directly multiply. So L square by 12 minus L square by 2n square pi square into, so you can write them in a single square root, n square h square over 4l square. If you take L square common, this L square cancels, right? And if you do further simplification, you will get the answer as, okay, if you do further simplification, you will get the answer as h by 4 pi into square root of n square pi square by 3 minus 2. Okay, you will get the final value like this, right? Here, see, to this quantity, to the h by 4 pi, if you multiply this quantity, then only that is equal to delta x into delta px. Listen, it is very clear that delta x delta px should be greater than h by 4 pi. Why? Because if I multiply h by 4 pi with this quantity, then only it is equal to this, right? So which implies that, see what I am trying to say, this delta x and delta px clearly indicates that delta x and delta px, right, this should be greater than h by 4 pi. Definitely it should be greater than h by 4 pi, okay, right? Suppose 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 if for some reason, suppose if n is equal to, or depending upon the value of the box length or the value of n, right, it may be 0 in one particular positions, right, or this may be equal to 1, roughly it may be equal to 1. If this is equal to 1, delta x delta px may be equal to h by 4 pi, right. For, see, if I put n equal to 1, say for example, if I put n equal to 1, I will get pi square by 3. What is pi square? Pi square is roughly 9 point something. Okay, 9 point something divided by 3, you will get some roughly 3. 3 minus 2, you will get roughly equal to 1. Therefore, delta x delta px may be equal to h by 4 pi. That is possible. It may be equal to h by 4 pi, and if n increases, this value will increase. Therefore, if you multiply h by 4 pi with that quantity, it will be greater than, that is delta x and delta px. The product will be greater than h by 4 pi. Okay, so this confirms the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. This is the Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, right. See, for any quantum condition to be valid, right, it should obey, or if any particle obeys or follows quantum mechanical or if you apply quantum mechanics to any particle, right, then the results must satisfy this Heisenberg uncertainty principle, right. Yeah, so this is purely a quantum mechanical term. Okay, keep this in mind. So particle in 1D box is purely a quantum mechanical method by which we calculated the energy and the wave function, right. Then, so we have calculated the average value of x, average value of x square, average value of px, average value of px square. Then we also calculated the standard deviation delta x and delta px, right, and we also verified whether it obeys Heisenberg principle or not. Yes, it obeys Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. Suppose, see here a question comes. What is that? Suppose if suppose for n is equal for the ground state, if 0 point energy is 0, suppose if 0 point energy is 0, if, right, 0 point energy 0 means, okay, you know, the formula is this: En equal to n square h square over 8 ml square. Okay, the formula is this. If and this is nothing but, if n is equal to, if I put n equal to 1, I will get 0 point energy, right. Listen, if I put n equal to 0, then only this value will become 0. So if 0 point energy is 0, it means n should be equal to 0. If n is equal to 0, what will happen? See here we have n. Suppose if I put n equal to 0 here, okay, this entire term becomes 0, this becomes 0, and h by 4 pi becomes 0. So delta x and delta px become equal to 0. If delta x and delta px become 0, that means you can measure both position and momentum, okay, with 100% accuracy for a microscopic particle, right. It is not possible. Okay, delta x into delta px, delta x and delta px can never be 0. It's not equal to 0. If it is 0, then it means, right, if suppose if this is 0, it means we can measure both position and momentum. We can measure both position and momentum simultaneously with 100% accuracy. Okay, but this is not possible. Why? Because the particle that we are handling is a microscopic particle. The particle is microscopic particle. For microscopic particle, right, it is not possible or it is impossible to measure position and momentum simultaneously with 100% accuracy. It is not possible. Therefore, delta x and delta px never be 0. Okay, when we'll get this value 0? We will get this value 0 if I put n equal to 0. If I put n equal to 0, right? I'm sorry, yeah, here. If I put n equal to 0, then only this term becomes 0. If n is equal to 0, it means 0 point energy is supposed to be 0. Okay, so this is very clear that this is not possible. This is not possible, right, for microscopic particle. Therefore, n cannot be 0. Okay, if n cannot be 0, then 0 point energy cannot be 0. Right. So the presence of 0 point energy, very important. The presence of 0 point energy here, okay, gives the quantum mechanical origin, right, to the system. Right. Yeah. So the quantization is actually arises, okay, through this 0 point energy. We can say in this manner. Right. This is very important. Keep this in mind. Okay. Next. So Heisenberg uncertainty principle indirectly proves that, right, 0 point energy cannot be 0 in the case of particle confined in 1D box, right? Yeah. So this is another information that you should keep in mind. Now what I'm going to do, so we have discussed some basic ideas on particle in 1D box, right? Now we'll start with the particle in 2D box, right? We'll discuss some informations on that. Then we'll go with the particle in 3D box. Once we complete all these things, then we'll do numerical problems, right, on all these aspects. Okay, yeah. So now we'll start with the particle in 2D box. Particle in two-dimensional box. Particle confined in two-dimensional box. Right? Yeah. Here, listen. I assume that I'll take two axes now, x and y. So this is my x-axis. This is y-axis. I'll take two axes. Right? And in x-axis, assume that the particle is confined to the length 0 to L. Similarly, in the y-axis also, the particle is confined with the same length 0 to L. So here x-axis length is L and y-axis length also L. So the particle is confined, x-axis length is L and y-axis length should be also L. So the particle is confined, right? I can draw like this, yeah. Confined only in this region. Since this length and this length and this length all are equal, we can say that it is a square box. Right? It is a perfect square box. Right? So a 2D box can be a perfect square box. What is the alternative option for this? Or what is the other option here? The other option is this. Right? Suppose I'll take a particle, okay, confined. I'll take x-axis and y-axis like this. Now I'll take say some length a along x-axis, and along y-axis I'll take some length b. So this is y-axis length and this is x-axis length. Now the lengths are not equal. If the lengths are not equal, then we'll get a box. That box is not a square box, it is actually a rectangular box. It is actually a rectangular box. So for particle in 2D box, okay, for particle in 2D box, we have two possible cases. One is square box, the other one is rectangular box. Right? First we'll start with the particle in square box. Right? We'll discuss about the quantized energy values and eigenfunctions. Right? After that we'll discuss the rectangular box. Okay. Yeah. I stop here. We'll continue this in the next class.